snowball at the dawn, and I got rhythm. I got rhythm. I got rhythm. Snowball at the dawn, and I got rhythm.
All right, first up today, the leaves are completely taking over my house, so we're going to run to Home Depot and pick up a rake. Then we're going to go to my favorite taco place in the entire world for tacos. Because really, that's the first thing you should do every year on New Year's Day. I had a great conversation with my wife this morning about forgiveness and what it means and how it can be achieved. The best definition I've ever heard for forgiveness is that forgiveness is our involuntary reaction to restitution, or to adequate restitution. What that means is our forgiveness is not under our control. It's something that sort of just happens inside of us once the person that damaged us in some way has made up for their damage to a degree that we naturally sort of become okay with it. So that does a couple important things. The first thing it does is it gets rid of this idea that I agree is completely false, that you can sort of like willfully forgive. Now, I agree you can willfully act like you've forgiven somebody, but I don't think you can sort of will yourself into an emotional state. And forgiveness is an emotional state of being. What this also means is that for some things, it's entirely possible that forgiveness can never, will never be achievable for whatever damage was done. You know, the big things are obvious, like rape and murder and child abuse, things like that. Like, if you're an abused child, it's entirely possible that there's nothing anyone can do, nothing your parents or abuser could do to ever make you feel forgiveness for that level of crime. It also means that adequate restitution for the purposes of forgiveness is a totally subjective thing. It's in the eye of the damaged to decide or to feel when the wrong has been made up for. It also clarifies what we have to do when we damage people. The lengths that we need to go to if we need to or want to attain forgiveness from a person for damaging them. I tried to teach my daughter what was the 3 parts to a true apology. And I think it rings true even with this definition of forgiveness. You have to admit guilt, you have to show remorse, and you have to make restitution as best you can. I also think that once you've been truly recompensed for damage, and you truly feel forgiveness, you've achieved a place where you're almost apathetic, or, I mean, you wouldn't mind if the entire situation happened again. So I need to explain that. So people that are experiencing true forgiveness, I think, would be ambivalent to having the damage and the restitution done again. So let me explain what I mean. Let's say I have a really cool bicycle that I really, really like, and some douchebag down the street steals it, and then gets home and, you know, maybe hears from a friend of a friend how bummed or how sad I am about losing, you know, my favorite bicycle. And so he decides to return it and seek my forgiveness. So, step 1, he brings the bike to me, says, "Here's your bike back. I stole it. I was wrong to steal your bike. I'm sorry. What can I do to make up for it?" So after I get done kicking him in the ball, listening to what he has to say and hearing his apology, maybe I mention that there's a really awesome set of pedals that I've been wanting, or some new handlebar grips, or, you know, maybe one of those cool baby carriers that you pull behind your bicycle that are pretty expensive, outrageously priced, I think. Those are things I've been wanting, and, you know, it would be nice if he would make it up to me by spending some of his money to make it right. So I've got my bike back, and let's say he goes out and, you know, he spends $600-800 on accessories and brings them to me and says, "Here you go. You know, this is to make up for stealing your bike." You know, I get all the stuff, and now I've got my bike back. It's still in good shape. I've got all these new accessories, you know, worth a fair amount of money. at that point, I might be okay with the deal. At that point, I might not be, because maybe it's the principle of the matter, and you stole my bike, and I'm sorry, I'm just not feeling it yet. So at that point, the guy has the decision to make. Do I want to continue seeking forgiveness? I think at that point, in terms of common law, court cases, his legal requirement for making restitution for the crime would probably be satisfied. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about forgiveness. If this guy wants my forgiveness, then he is going to have to continue doing whatever it takes until I feel and tell him I feel that forgiveness that he's seeking. That's just how it works. I can't lie to him and say, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I forgive you. Like, that's just deceit. That's not honest. That's not honesty. And we're talking about the truth behind forgiveness. So maybe he goes out and gets my bike cleaned and serviced. Maybe he pays for my entrance into some, the next cross-country bike race. Maybe he gives me a ride there so I don't have to take my car. I can just throw my bike in his car and go there. My point is, eventually, after he's done enough and slaved enough and bought enough stuff for me and really kind of worked hard and put in the effort and put in the resources to show that he's done wrong and wants to make it right, eventually, I think a non-psychopath would feel forgiveness for the guy. Genuine forgiveness. Not forced forgiveness, not forgiveness that was just decided upon or that, we just feel obligated to provide. I mean, you would genuinely forgive the guy. And when you're at that point, when I think it's genuine forgiveness, I think you also become ambivalent to the whole thing happening again. What that means is you're okay with the outcome. And I say ambivalent because it doesn't mean you'd want the thing to happen again. If you'd want the thing to happen again, I think you've maybe been over-restituted, meaning you've been overcompensated for the damage to the point where it becomes like a profitable endeavor, which is beyond forgiveness and not what I'm talking about. So I really think it's important that we have a good understanding of what forgiveness is, what restitution is as we go through life. I think good people know how to admit when they've done wrong and know how to make it right and also feel the obligation to do so. Oh, now it is time for tacos. The best taco place in the entire world is called Fuzzy's Tacos. And I stand to be proven wrong. I love me some tacos. If you know of a better place, please tell me. I will try it out. I have terrible news. Fuzzy's Tacos has put up an anti-gun sign in the window. Let me show you. These are what's called 30.07 signs. They basically mean that you are not allowed on the property if you have an openly carried weapon. This also means that people named Patrick that have principled positions on self-defense are also banned from entering the premises, which means Fuzzy's doesn't like me anymore and wants to break up. I can't tell you how bummed I am. That is so frustrating. Guess we're eating toxic smell today. How sad does your company have to be when Taco Bell's kicking your ass for freedom? See, Taco Bell wants my business and my money and gives me the respect of not disarming me in the process. Okay, we're gonna play with blocks.
Okay.
Because that's awesome.
I better help you.
Yeah, you better help me.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna put this one right here.
This one. Right here.
Now I'm gonna put this one right there.
I'm going to put this one right here.
Now I'm gonna put this one right here.
Right here.
Right here.
This one right here.
Look in my nose.
Here.
Right here.
Over here.
Right here.
Right here.
Right up here.
Perfect. Good job. Give me a 5. Blow it up. Nope, load up. Blow it up. No, blow it up. With your fist. With your fist. Use your fist. Bump it. Boom!
Now I'm fun and building it.